Welcome back. I'm Ezra Levant. Uber, the taxi-hailing smartphone app, has set its sights on Toronto, causing quite the stir. They've been advertising on city property at the CNE and on TTC buses. Some taxi companies within the city argue that Uber needs to be licensed and regulated and rationed just like the cozy little cartel, but the company disputes this. They say they're a technology company rather than a taxi service and not subject to the traditional taxi socialism. Uber's general manager, Ian Black, joins me now. Now, Ian, it's great to have you on the show. I'm a fan of Uber. I've used it in New York. And once you use it, you never want to go back to taxis, and you realize what a sucker you've been your whole life using for taxis. Uber works in Toronto, but you're talking about doing something new. Tell me what new thing you want to do in Toronto.
Fabulous. Well, as you know, taxi and black car service, limo services are predominant services right now. You can get those by opening your smartphone, get them at the click of a button, seamless transaction. But really, I think the future of transportation in Canada is going to be ride-sharing, carpooling. I think there's a lot of room to expand. We aren't there yet in Canada, and really one of the impediments to that are regulations that aren't friendly, and frankly, the big taxi monopoly fighting back and protecting their own interests.
Well, and that's what brought us to this subject today. That grainy photograph of an ad on the back of a Toronto bus was a shocking revelation by a taxi baron who wrote to every city councillor in Toronto trying to get them outraged about this. Here, let me read from this email that was sent to every city councillor in Toronto. Let me read it right now. It says, as the employee of a licensed company that follows the rules as laid out by the City of Toronto, as increasingly difficult as that continues to be, we are not only protected in the face of illegal operators, they have managed to ultimately fly in the face of regulation and taking it to a new level. They've been able to advertise on City of Toronto property. She shouted the last part into her computer. That's Christine Hubbard of Beck Taxi. And so you've already got your taxi competitor in the form of the black limos and the SUVs, but this ride-sharing thing has put the fear of Jehovah in them, hasn't it?
Well, and I think this is a great example of the City of Toronto just being ready to move on. Big Taxi has been fighting back with the same old tactics. And as you saw, the advertisement we have out there is drive with Uber, earn more. We're standing up for drivers. We're trying to help drivers earn a living. What Beck Taxi and the taxi monopoly is doing is just saying, drivers, we don't want you earning more. We want you taxi drivers to continue earning $4 or $5 an hour. And we're on the side of drivers. We're helping drivers earn much more. And I think the City of Toronto supports that.
Ain't that the truth? And the thing is, historically in North America, you've had these cartels. I don't think most people know this, but the most costly thing about a taxi is not the car. It is the license or the medallion, as it's called in some jurisdictions. Some places you cost $100,000 just for the ticket to be a taxi driver. So no new immigrant's going to have $100,000. So it's these barons who sit back. It's like being a slum landlord. Yep. Really, you got this cruddy little car that some new immigrant drives. He gets a tiny bit, but he's got to pay you huge rent for your medallion. It is it's like a sweatshop.
Oh, it's just an awful life for these drivers. They work 70, 80 hours a week, but they start the week $700 in the hole because that's what they need to pay in order to rent a taxi. So what we're trying to do is provide more business to them. Yeah. We say to drivers, take our app, take our phone, we'll send you more business. And through that, they're earning $10,000, $15,000 more a year to provide for their families.
You know, we had one of your colleagues on the other day about trying to get Uber into Calgary. And it's not just the right of taxi drivers to drive without paying a shakedown to their slum landlord taxi owner or to the city. It's about the right of a severely normal citizen to hail a cab without waiting half an hour. I know there was a crazy idea in Calgary that you would have to, even if you got an Uber car to show up, you'd have to wait half an hour before you're allowed to open the door to protect the existing cartels. Like, it is literally a war against consumers in this collusion between politicians and taxi barons who give them donations. It's so gross. It feels like Tammany Hall, New York, 150 years ago.
Well, you'd hope that these regulations stand up for consumers, stand up for riders. They don't. Yeah. The limo regulations, the taxi regulations, they are clearly pro-taxi monopoly, and they're protecting that monopoly. And so what we see here, we try and challenge that by disrupting the industry, by looking after customer service for riders. And of course, the taxi monopoly kicks back. But I think people see right through that. I think they see the superior service we're providing. We have ETAs, or estimated arrival times, under 3 minutes throughout the City of Toronto. People love that.
You know, the problem is you've got a small number of taxi barons with an enormous amount to lose, and then you've got hundreds of thousands, or in Toronto, millions of citizens with a tiny bit to gain. So Joe average Torontonian or Calgarian is not going to take the time to write to the politician or make a $100 donation. But a handful of 100 taxi barons, they're going to spend 10, 20, 100 grand each to keep their multi-million-dollar monopoly. That's the problem, is that the benefits are concentrated to the cartel, the oligopoly. I hope you win. We only have 30 more seconds. Are you optimistic that your rideshare program is going to launch in Toronto successfully?
I'm very optimistic. I think the City of Toronto needs better service. Uber provides that service. And ride sharing, I think in the long term, can be 50% cheaper than taxis. Folks are going to sign up for that. It's also great for drivers. It provides economic opportunity. And ultimately, it spreads the wealth to consumers and drivers rather than concentrating it with the taxi monopoly.
You know why I like Uber? I like it because I've used it in New York. I love it. But I like it because you are fixing the taxi industry that's been broken for decades and that politicians wouldn't do. They don't have the courage. You've got the technology. I'm a huge fan. Keep coming on the show to give us updates, folks.